It feels like all I've been hearing about NTE past few days is how generous it is. But at the same time, I saw a lot of people online were confused how the gacha works because, after all, it's not your typical banner. You play a Monopoly board game. Sort of. If that's not enough, while the promised 470 free pulls, which can be obtained during 1.0 version of global launch, sounds quite impressive, there's definitely a lot of details I haven't seen others discuss much about it, like how this actually ends up working out with the current roster of 16 characters. And so, in this video, I will explain to you how free-to-play friendly NTE really is, and how the game differs if you go pure free-to-play, spend a little, or spend a lot. I played NTE in all of its closed betas, and I've also gained early access to it right now, just before global launch, so let me share what I've learned, and hopefully, you'll have a better idea of how free-to-play friendly NTE is. Oh, and yeah, this video is sponsored by the devs, so big thanks. Alright, let's first start off with the gacha system. It's called Scarsborough Fair, and there's going to be 2 banners active during global launch, featured and standard. In fact, they are called boards instead of banners in the game, which makes sense. You can look at the whole board and notice all its rewards immediately. These gacha boards also use dice, so when you roll, you can kinda see the reward before landing onto it. Now, there's a bunch of different tiles with their own specific rewards. However, long story short, I would say the dice rolls are kinda like a small spectacle because essentially the S-class units, which are of the highest rarity, will have a specific chance to appear. I believe it's 1.87% overall and 0.99% base chance, which is already above average. However, there's a few really strong selling points to consider. First of all, the featured boards, such as Nanali's, who's going to be the first featured unit, these boards do not have a 50-50. I know my Genshin viewers understand what this means, but basically, quite a few gacha games over the years use this practice where if you pull for a limited unit, there's a 50% chance it would be either the featured unit or a unit from standard pool. If you lose the 50-50, meaning you get the standard unit, next time you're guaranteed the limited unit. But as you can see in NTE, this 50-50 does not exist. If you get an S rarity unit on the featured board, it will always be that specific unit, and in this case, it would be Nanali. Next, and I really like this feature, while the hard pity is 90, there's also a soft pity which starts from 70. On top of that, you will even notice the board transforms to signify the improved rates. So this is a really cool way to visualize you're now so much closer to getting that S rarity unit after 70 pulls. Oh, and yeah, every 10 pulls you will either get an A rank unit or an arc, which are basically just weapons for the units to equip. Lastly, and probably my favorite part, both sides of the board have these 2 spaces. If you land on them from the die roll, you can cross a special bridge and enter this small area which has significantly better rewards, one of them being an S rarity unit. So yeah, the gacha here is a lot more gamified, and I personally found it to be quite exciting to use. What's also interesting is that there are a few spaces on the board where you can obtain 1 or 5 dice, essentially helping you further build the pity without losing the die, or even gaining more of them as a result. And there's a bunch of more small details, but I won't go into them. However, the overall gacha here is pretty good to be honest, and so the big question is, what's the catch? Well, each featured board also has cosmetic rewards. You can either obtain them if you get lucky on the die roll, otherwise there's a progress track that gives away these rewards after you make a certain amount of rolls. For example, on Nanali's board, spending 50 dice gives you this cute glider, 120 dice rolls lets you redeem this car decal, and finally, if you made 200 rolls, you can obtain her exclusive skin. But remember, as I said, you can see here I was able to obtain her skin from the board. Granted, it's on one of those special bridge crossing spaces, but I didn't need to make 200 total dice rolls. However, luck is still involved here, and so, while the progress of character pity carries over to the next featured banner, this progress for cosmetics, as far as I'm aware, does not carry over. Sort of. You see, if I'm not mistaken, the progress will be kept between every rerun of the same featured board. So let's say I made 90 rolls, Nanali's banner ends, and maybe 3 months later her rerun happens. And this same board comes back, and then my 90 roll progress should be there for the cosmetics. Now, another thing to consider would be the actual standard board. Since you cannot lose your 50-50 on featured boards, it's quite likely a lot of people's rosters will be quite small if they do not keep pulling on standard boards. Well, at least at the start of the game. Granted, there is a special discount when you first start pulling on the standard board, which makes the first 50 pulls cost 20% less, and after those 50 pulls, you can also then use a free selector and get any of the standard S rarity units. Plus, we can see from those previewed 470 pulls, you can get 169 dice, which are used for standard boards, and then 32 red dice, which are used for featured boards. But notice there's also around 28k of this currency that you can obtain for free called Annulith. Well, you can spend 160 of it to buy either blue or red dice. Obviously, most people will want to buy red dice because that makes the most sense, and assuming you obtain every single Annulith from 1.0, which obviously will take a lot of time, but ultimately, this means you can get around 178.5 red dice if you convert all of the Annulith. Still, I have to make sure to mention this now. You will need to invest time into the game to unlock all of those 470 pulls combined. I mean, sure, some of them are just login rewards, but from this breakdown that was shown during the 1.0 stream, it's clear a lot of the rewards are tied to various gameplay systems. So yeah, how fast or how many days this will take is still not clear. I know NTE launched for Chinese community a few days earlier, but they're still figuring things out. However, I believe it's been confirmed it's possible to obtain Nunnally at least before her banner ends, assuming worst case scenario of you hitting 90 pity. Lastly, and I think this is super important to mention, when you obtain a dupe of a character, you can then awaken one of their powers. Typically in other gachas like Genshin or Wuwa, the first so-called constellation or sequence corresponds to the first dupe you own. However, in NTE, you get to pick which dupe awakening you want to enable. In fact, you can toggle it on or off, and select a different awaken effect. Or you can just disable and play the character without dupe powers. Well, technically, when you obtain and enable 3rd and 6th awakened dupes, then these resonance effects kick in and they cannot be disabled anymore, but this will mostly matter to theory crafters and guide makers who just want to test stuff. But yeah, not only there's no 50-50, but gaining dupes of units means you can pick whichever dupe power you want to enable, which is quite flexible. I just hope this doesn't turn into one of those games where a character isn't that super great without multiple dupes, since they are easier to obtain compared to other major titles. But okay, one last gacha aspect to mention would be the arcs, or should I say weapons. Basically, you can get featured units weapon from these banners. They don't have monopoly boards, just good old gacha system, although you can only pull on these weapon banners with 10 keys. You cannot perform single pulls. On top of that, after 6 multi-pulls, you are guaranteed any S rarity weapon, but after 8 multi-pulls, you are then guaranteed to obtain the featured weapon. Now, as you saw, the game promises you can obtain 105 keys in 1.0 version, and 20 of those keys are purchased from the shop here, which requires you to spend currency that's obtained from making standard or featured board pulls. Kinda like how Genshin's Stardust works. This resets each month, so 40 keys total within 1.0, and then the other 40 can be gained from Hunter Exchange. This place asks you to use fonts, which is the money of the game you use to buy city stuff, and its rewards are gradually unlocked with your City Tycoon rank. And then you get the other 25 keys by eventually reaching account level 40. I'm not sure if this is all of it right now, but considering you need 80 keys in a worst case scenario to obtain featured unit's weapon, it's quite scarce in my opinion. Granted, you can also just spend Annulith for keys if needed, and it costs the same as a regular pull, although you will need 10 of them as I said. So all in all, I would keep an eye on the weapon banner for now, but only if you care about the featured unit's weapon, because there's lots of ways you can obtain S rarity weapons in this game by just completing side quests and missions. In fact, I think now is a good time to talk about other freebies. Okay, so the game will launch with a 16 character roster, and I believe 6 characters will be provided entirely for free, so that's already 40% of the entire roster unlocked. Yes, I am even counting the main character 0. However, I want to bring attention to this girl here, Chiz. Basically, Chiz can be unlocked by reaching rank 18 on City Tycoon, which is a super important part of the game where you develop the city and go through various tasks. In other words, this feature is unavoidable. You will engage with it, which then awards you with a free copy of Chiz, who is a main DPS and she's S rarity. But get this, you can also obtain all 6 of her copies by further raising the City Tycoon rank, and if that's not enough, you can also get her fully refined S rarity weapon. Right now, a lot of CN community believes Chiz is one of the best DPS units in the game, assuming you unlock her dupes, which will take a while, but eventually you will max her out, which is pretty crazy. And you cannot obtain her from standard or feature boards. She is exclusively tied to this City Tycoon management system. So in other words, if you want to own a top DPS unit without even spending a single gacha pull, NTE offers that, and I think that's quite wild. Still, there are a few more ways this game monetizes its content, most obvious being custom skins. This Nunnally skin can only be purchased with special Rift Crystal currency, which can only be obtained with real money, and Chiz also has a similarly priced skin. So while the gacha is kinda generous, some might want to pamper their Natalie or Chiz with a custom look. However, Natalie, for example, has like 2 other skins you can obtain without paying money, and there's also that gacha skin. And then Chiz also has her max bond level skill, which basically can be unlocked by maxing out friendship with her. And then interestingly enough, Daffodil's skin can be bought for Rift Crystals or Fonts, which cost 3 million. So eventually you can unlock it, and dare I say, this skin really makes some of her features pop out. So yeah, you can unlock a lot of skins for free, and there's only a few currently that cost real money. But there's also packages you can buy in the game. And the most prominent is this one where you can buy a go-kart, and it's quite fast, since you can also use a nitrous boost to speed around the city. Not sure if you can unlock a different go-kart for free, but this might be one of those cases where you can obtain a lot of different vehicles, while some, like this go-kart, will remain behind a paywall. I also think it's only fair that I mention the Fonts currency, which is kinda time-gated behind a separate stamina system called City Stamina, and this is the main way to obtain Fonts, which then you use to progress your City Tycoon rank, buy new apartments, vehicles, and so on. And the reason I mention it is that whales will be able to easily obtain tons of it on day 1, because this shop tab, which requires warp pieces, you can use 10 warp pieces to obtain 50k Fonts, and it has unlimited stock. And warp pieces obviously are obtained from featured and standard gacha boards, kinda like Genshin's Star Glitter. I mean, there's definitely better things you can buy, like additional dupe of a standard unit which refreshes monthly, or just grab more pulls, but some heavy spenders will end up just buying tons of fonts and driving all those fancy cars on day 1. Will it matter to you? Probably not, but I'm just letting you know this option exists for certain people who will drop money on this game. I mean, look, overall, since I was playing the game during CBT3 the most, and now I also spent a lot of time during early access and observed the reports coming from CN community, since they got to play earlier than global version, basically my thoughts are that the game's gacha, at least right now, seems really generous, but there are a few things you need to be aware of in terms of monetization. Although I'd say for a typical free-to-play player, I think this will be quite the enjoyable experience, especially since the gacha works differently in terms of visual representation, the dice roll on the board feel really engaging, and the fact that Chiz, who's one of the best DPS units, can be maxed out completely by just playing the game, which is quite insane. Plus, most of the skins are free, the best ones, or should I say, the most alluring ones, are also free, so besides the go-kart and some fonts shenanigans for the whale players, I believe this game is definitely free-to-play friendly. So yeah, hope you found this video useful. I'll be releasing my beginner's guide the moment global servers are open, so be sure to subscribe to my channel, and don't forget to press like on this video. Thanks, and I'll see you soon.